Hello everybody, we are group 10 and today we're gonna bring you to a very interesting topic, the China impact on Africa. Here is our outline. For the opening, I would like to invite Thảo.
First of all, talking about China impacts on Africa, we must mention trade because China is currently the largest trade partner of Africa, with the total merchandise trade between China and Africa increased from $9 billion in 2000 to $208 billion in 2020, according to scmp.com. With the imported products mostly of Africa from China are machineries, vehicles, and finished goods. This import came up to 991 US billion because China has exempted import tariff or zero tariff treatment to over 25 countries in Africa, and the price-sensitive markets in Africa have welcomed the easy available of low-priced Chinese goods. And with the exported products from Africa to China are mostly natural resources. This clearly shows that China is taking advantage of abundance in raw natural resources of Africa for production of goods.
And now about the FDI. As you can see from the chart above, African countries make up less than 4% of China global trade and less than 3% of China global FDI flow and stock. Similarly, China only accounted for around 5% of global FDI in Africa in 2015. That's why Africa is much more dependent on China for trade than for FDI. Here is the top 5 recipients of Chinese FDI in 2018. They are Democratic Republic of Congo, Nigeria, South Africa, Sudan, and Zambia. And this figure shows how Chinese FDI in Africa has started to diversify away from the traditional recipient of the global FDI, those 5 countries, into high-growth countries that are not necessarily resources rich. Once the top 5 African recipients of the global FDI are excluded, China's share of FDI into Africa goes from around 1% in 2004 to almost 9% in 2015. And according to the World Investment Report in 2019, China is currently the biggest developing country investor in Africa.
So talking about it, China, this is the map of China existing to Africa, and as you can see, China has existed most part of Africa with many billion-dollar projects. The most significant one is Ghana in 2010 with over $5 billion. And this is only the figures in 2000 to 2011. Recently, in 2018, China has announced $60 billion in aid and loan for Africa, which has raised a question of concern of what is China's attention behind this aid, and whether Africa is relying heavily on China.
And here, this number shows the Cultural Institute in Africa and China take up to 48 buildings there, with a vision for Africans to consider Chinese as a second language, and furthermore, they want to even control the whole continent. They built a lot of Confucius Institute in Africa with a mission to spread the Mandarin and Chinese culture. Now,
come to the issue of picking an African nation and compare it to Vietnam, we chose it Nigeria. This country ranks second by GDP in Africa according to World Bank, and it is influenced 61 to 70% by China compared to other African nations. Comes to the similarities, there are 4 reasons for China's investment: cheap labor, export promotion, raw materials, and potential markets. And there are 3 sectors that they mainly focus: infrastructure, industrial, and technology. Come to the differences, Nigeria mostly export their oil and gasoline to the China industry. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, the food industry is more focused because of the food resources which is plenty in this country. And I will show you the line graph of China's total FDI in Vietnam and Nigeria in period of 8 years from 2010 to 2017. You can see that the figures for Nigeria is much higher than that of Vietnam. So there are 3 positive impacts for this investment. It creates jobs for workers in 2 countries. It industrialized their economies and also enhanced people's living standards. Besides, there are three negative impacts. This investment made the two country economies heavily rely on China's investment, and the China technology and products may be low quality, and it results in the contamination to the environment of both Vietnam and Nigeria. Next part I will give to Hai.
In limited time, I'll give you a brief picture of main export, also import product between China and Nigeria, also between China and Vietnam. To the main part is the impact that the bilateral relationships bring to the two countries. First, in Nigeria. So Nigeria can gain from trade to become the leader of its own continent, as the two countries, Nigeria and China, are the most popular countries on their own continent. So on trading, they can have the material, also the products that they want to improve their economies. Secondly, Nigeria can import important inputs for production and also goods in use, so that they can develop for their economy. The second country is Vietnam. So Vietnam have some benefits from this trade. Firstly, a large amount of manufactured products are exported to China, and the value of manufactured products makes up for more than 60% of the export product to China. Secondly, China is a potential market for fruit products from the south of Vietnam. You can see the chart showing China's import of various Vietnamese fruit types, mostly dragon fruits, flowing and watermelons, coconuts, lychee, and also Vietnam is the third largest suppliers for the Chinese markets. The opposite is the negative impact. So Nigeria and Vietnam are also running the trade deficit with China, and the situation has been last for a long time. You can see the chart here. So Nigeria have another problems here. The trade with China not only creates the trade deficit, but also floods Nigeria with low-tech manufactured goods. In Vietnam, they are depending on China more on trade, because China is the biggest export partner and also the second largest importer. Another problem is Vietnam is dependent on China, the source that they export their inputs for the necessary of production. Okay, I'll give you the rest of the presentation to Mai Anh and Tuan.
So this is what we discover from the above comparison: different economy, different import products, and diversified products. Let's go to the first point. This is static of import product of Vietnam and Nigeria. It can be seen that almost import of the two countries are the same, but there are huge differences in export products. Vietnamese products are usually from industries, while Nigeria are from agriculture. This is what happens when Nigeria export cannot compete with other countries. The domestic industry is facing a big problem. There is evidence that Chinese goods are flooding the Nigerian market in a way that is harming local businesses. Unable to cope with cheap imports, the domestic textile industry has been hit hardest. In 2007, the head of a Nigerian Textile Manufacturer Association said that the number of textile producers in the country have fallen from 200 to 28. Move to the next point. Back to the export, this is the list of Vietnamese export. Although machinery accounts for 60.4% of Vietnam's export, this is a value-added product, not a mineral resources, so they can produce unlimited output. And take a look to Nigeria. 70.5% of the export came from mineral products. They receive 95% of its export earnings and 70% of government revenue from the oil sector. It means that if it's impossible to earn from oil, it is difficult for them to make money. In 2016, when oil price went down, Nigeria faced an economic crisis. GDP growth is only minus 1.6%. Now we will move to summary.
So in summary, we can all see that China is a great influence on Vietnam and Nigeria, but also other economies of African countries, as they are a huge investor and a very big trade partner for the developing country. The reasons behind Chinese acts can be different. However, this bilateral relationship with China can bring benefits and losses to the developing country. We really should enhance the benefits of this relationship with China and minimize. The best we can do is to minimize the losses from this relationship. For example, we really give some recommendations about trade deficit to close or minimize as much as we can to close the trade deficit gap, and also to diversify our portfolios of traders, of partners, to not to depend on any economies for too much. And also in terms of long-term orientations, we really should invest in human capital. Also, great governance is also one of it. And natural resources is not to be too dependent on, because that's not sustainable for the future. And if that's the recommendation that we give to further enhance the competitiveness of the economies in the long run. This in the next slide, we have the next slide. So this is the citation that we reference for this presentation. Thank you very much for listening. So like and subscribe to Sun Hang channels. Thank you. Bye.